The sound of tearing fabric silenced Rustler's bar completely. Olivia Reed ripped Daniel's shirt without asking, blood trickling down her leg, her manicured fingers pressing the torn fabric against her wound. Then she saw it. The ink beneath her fingertips, a Marine Corps tattoo scarred and faded, stretching across his muscles like it held stories within. The whole bar held its breath, not because of the torn shirt, but because of what that tattoo meant. "Who are you?" she whispered. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much, said too little, and answered with the kind of silence that could change everything. "Daniel Walker, Staff Sergeant, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines," he said finally, voice quiet enough for only her to hear despite absolute bar silence. "And you just tore up the only decent shirt I own." Despite blood pain and public spectacle, Olivia almost smiled at his dry humor. But the smile faded, realizing what her desperate action had cost him. Seeking help, she'd stripped away precious anonymity, exposing him to unwelcome recognition. 3 months earlier, Olivia Reed had discovered Rustler's bar by accident, fleeing another brutal board meeting where old men questioned every decision despite her company's record profits. The quarterly review had been particularly vicious today. When she'd presented Reed Technologies' groundbreaking AI architecture, Harold Fitzgerald, the 68-year-old chairman with breath that reeked of expensive scotch and disdain, had interrupted her presentation to ask if the technical boys had vetted her data. The technical boys, most of whom reported to her were younger than her and possessed half her expertise in artificial intelligence algorithms. She'd maintained her composure, eviscerated his concerns with precision data, and emerged victorious as usual. But these victories came with a cost, each one requiring twice the effort and 3 times the preparation of her male counterparts. 15 years into her tech career, the pattern hadn't changed, only her ability to mask her exhaustion. The Harley-Davidson Sportster S roared to life in the corporate parking garage, its matte black finish reflecting the cold fluorescent lights like liquid obsidian. Olivia threw one long leg over the machine, her designer leather jacket, custom-tailored, and worth more than most people's monthly salary, molding perfectly to her silhouette. The helmet she slipped on cost $3,000, but she wore it with the casual indifference of someone for whom money had lost all meaning. Her father, Richard Reed, had taught her to ride when she was 16 against her mother's wishes. It was one of the few real connections they'd shared before his business consumed him, before the overseas meetings became more important than birthdays, before his secretary knew more about his life than his family did. When she rolled into Rustler's parking lot that first night, the contrast was jarring. Her bike, pristine and powerful, sat among beaten pickup trucks and aging sedans like a panther among alley cats. She hadn't planned to stop here, had been heading nowhere in particular, just away from the suffocating expectations of her life. But something about the weathered wooden sign and warm yellow light spilling from the windows had called to her. She dismounted with fluid grace, every movement precise and economical, the kind of body language that spoke of years navigating boardrooms where weakness meant death. Inside, Rustler's Olivia commanded attention without seeking it. At 32, she possessed the kind of beauty that money could enhance but not create: sharp cheekbones, emerald eyes that could cut glass, platinum, blonde hair pulled back in a severe ponytail that emphasized the elegant line of her neck. Her clothes whispered wealth, the leather jacket that fit like a second skin, designer jeans that probably cost more than the bartender's weekly wages, boots that were both functional and devastatingly expensive. But it was more than her appearance that drew stares. Olivia moved through the working-class bar like she owned the space, which, given her net worth, she probably could have. There was an untouchable quality to her presence, an invisible barrier that seemed to warn, look but don't approach, admire but don't presume. She took the third stool from the corner without asking if it was taken, ordered Jack Daniel's neat, without looking at the bartender, and paid with as crisp hundreds that she peeled from a money clip with the same indifference she might show crumpling tissue paper. The entire transaction spoke of someone accustomed to having the world bend to her will. Yet beneath the imperious exterior, something else flickered in those green eyes. A hollowness that all the money in the world couldn't fill. She sat alone in her designer armor, surrounded by the warm chatter of people who actually seemed to know each other, who belonged somewhere. Her isolation was palpable, not the comfortable solitude of choice, but the aching loneliness of someone who had everything except what mattered. Rustlers offered what her Cherry Hills mansion couldn't: honest anonymity. The weathered bar smelled of whiskey and truth. The routine became her lifeline, but it was a solitary one. 3 nights a week, she would appear like a ghost made of leather and loneliness, order her drink, and sit in regal isolation while life hummed around her. She was a queen in exile, powerful and alone, seeking something she couldn't name in the depths of her whiskey glass. Olivia Reed had built an empire from code, and determination had shattered glass ceilings, and gender barriers had accumulated wealth beyond her childhood imagination. But success had come with sacrifice. Her father had taught her that lesson: early relationships were collateral damage on the road to greatness. Her mother had reinforced it by drowning her loneliness in charity functions and prescription pills, finding purpose everywhere except her empty marriage. Olivia had sworn to be different, but ambition had its own gravity. Friendships withered under missed brunches and canceled plans. Romantic relationships crumbled beneath the weight of conference calls and international flights. The few men who weren't intimidated by her success eventually revealed they saw her as a trophy or a challenge, not a partner. The women either wanted her connections or resented her achievements. So she sat alone at Rustler's bar, nursing whiskey and wounds that wealth couldn't heal, walling herself off from a world that never quite understood her. That's when she noticed him always alone at the far end, nursing the same beer for hours. His stillness drew her attention, not attraction, but recognition. She understood vigilance born from different battles. He was late 30s, disciplined build, short, dark hair, work clothes that valued function over fashion. His scarred hands spoke of real labor, not boardroom handshakes. When he lifted his beer, every movement was economical, precise. His eyes cataloged everything: new arrivals, loud conversations, exit locations. Someone who'd learned safety was never guaranteed. Olivia found herself studying him during her visits. They were both refugees seeking solace in anonymity. The invisible barrier around his space made interruption unwelcome, but his presence became part of what made Rustler's sanctuary. What intrigued her most was how he reacted to the television news. When military casualties were reported, his jaw would tighten almost imperceptibly. He read the newspaper methodically, his reading pace slowing at obituaries, as if each name required recognition. Despite clothes suggesting careful money management, he always left a generous tip, even on a $7 tab. This wasn't a man who spent carelessly, which made the gesture more significant. Daniel didn't come to Rustler's just to drink. He came to find a moment's peace from something Olivia couldn't identify. The realization deepened her curiosity about the silent stranger who seemed as deliberately isolated as herself. One Thursday, her usual stool was occupied by a drunk businessman in an ill-fitting suit, loudly bragging about a deal he'd closed. His cologne poisoned the air around him, and his eyes had already assessed and dismissed every woman in the place as either conquest or invisible. Olivia hesitated at the bar's entrance, her sanctuary suddenly compromised. That's when the quiet stranger caught her eye in the mirror, glanced toward an empty seat near his own. The gesture was subtle but clear: invitation. She took the offered seat, nodding thanks. They sat in comfortable silence, watching a baseball game with the dedication of people not really seeing the screen. When the drunk finally left, Olivia felt tension ease from her shoulders. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded once, acknowledgement that conveyed both "you're welcome" and "it was nothing." Something had shifted. The boundary between them remained, but had become permeable. Over following weeks, Olivia learned his rhythms. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at 7:15. One beer, 2 hours exactly. Newspaper reading through every section. His habits suggested deliberate disconnection from the digital world. She noticed small details revealing layers beneath his composure: how his jaw tightened during military casualty reports on the television news, his occasional glances at his watch as if counting down to something important, the way his eyes softened when families with young children entered the bar, though he never engaged with them. Every observation built a more complex picture of this stranger who seemed both completely at ease in his solitude and yet somehow burdened by it. Unlike the men in Olivia's professional circle who wore their accomplishments like flashy watches, this man seemed intent on concealing his significance, on being overlooked. The night everything first changed, Olivia had drunk too much after a particularly brutal meeting with potential investors who questioned whether a woman could effectively lead a tech company in a male-dominated field. One venture capitalist had actually suggested she bring on a seasoned male CEO to make investors more comfortable. The rage that followed had led to 3 double whiskeys consumed too quickly. By 9:30, the room tilted dangerously and her control had dissolved. Tommy the bartender refused another drink, reaching for his phone to call a cab. Daniel appeared beside her stool. "I'll get her home safe," he told Tommy with quiet authority. That discouraged argument. Olivia wanted to protest but managed only undignified mumbles. Cool night air cleared her head enough for embarrassment. "My bike," she gestured vaguely. "Not tonight. Where do you live?" She gave her address through whiskey haze, revealing more than intended. During the 15-minute drive to her expensive house, she pressed her face against the cool window. Daniel's truck was old but impeccably maintained, the interior clean and organized with military precision. He drove with the same economy of movement she'd observed at the bar. No wasted motions, no unnecessary acceleration or lane changes. Even in this simple act, she could see the discipline that shaped him. At her door, his manner didn't change despite obvious wealth gaps. He ensured she got inside safely, handed her his card with a phone number, told her to call about her bike. Olivia expected humiliation, but instead remembered his steadiness, how he'd handled her vulnerability without advantage or judgment. When she called the next afternoon fighting divine punishment hangover, he answered immediately and agreed to meet at Rustler's. That evening, retrieving her keys with dignity, partially restored, Olivia realized something fundamental had changed. The invisible barrier had lowered. Not eliminated, but permeable. They were no longer strangers sharing space, but two people who'd seen each other's vulnerabilities and chosen respect over exploitation. "I owe you more than a shirt," Olivia said when he sat down. "You don't owe me anything." They sat in different silence, no longer about maintaining distance, but pause before revelation, equilibrium, before everything shifted. "I'm Olivia," she said, extending her hand formally. "Daniel," he replied, his grip firm and calloused. Their routine evolved into something like friendship. Nods carried more warmth. Silences felt like mutual understanding rather than parallel isolation. Tommy served them as a unit. Other regulars recognized them as a pair, despite minimal conversation. Olivia looked forward to these evenings intensely. Boardroom battles felt less urgent compared to wondering about stories hidden behind Daniel's careful composure. His scars followed patterns suggesting specific training. His alertness spoke of experience rather than natural caution. By December, their routine felt almost like friendship, though unlike any Olivia had experienced. They shared space and silence, offering presence without expectation, creating peace in a world demanding constant performance. Sometimes, Olivia said one evening after a particularly difficult day, battling with suppliers who'd missed deadlines and blamed her unreasonable expectations, "A stranger is more trustworthy than people you've known for years." Daniel considered this, rolling his beer bottle between his palms. "People you know have agendas based on history. Strangers just take you as you are." Exactly. The simple understanding felt profound to Olivia, who spent her days calculating motivations and hidden objectives. Simpler. "Until they're not strangers anymore," Daniel observed, his eyes meeting hers briefly. "Then it gets complicated again." The comment hung between them, acknowledging the subtle shift in their relationship without defining it. The night that changed everything started normally. Olivia arrived to find Daniel at his usual spot, newspaper spread, beer untouched. She'd spent the day hammering out an acquisition deal that would either secure her company's AI position or destroy everything. The boardroom battle had been particularly vicious, with her chief competitor insinuating she'd used feminine wiles, rather than business acumen, to secure a key partnership. She'd maintained her composure, destroyed his argument with precision, and emerged victorious. But the victory felt hollow, tainted by the necessity of fighting battles men never faced. At 8:30, Olivia stood to leave. Instead of her usual polite nod, she turned to face him directly. "Thank you for that night, for helping me." Daniel looked up, meeting her eyes. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't have. Olivia knew this with absolute certainty. In her world, vulnerability was weaponized weakness, exploited. Daniel's simple kindness, his respect for her and dignity, even when she'd lost control, was rarer than she cared to admit. They looked at each other across their careful distance, feeling the weight of unspoken conversations, unasked questions, untold stories locked behind mutual stranger status. "I'll see you Thursday," she said. "Thursday," he confirmed. Walking out, Olivia felt something set in motion. As she started her motorcycle, she caught him watching her leave through the window, no longer reading his newspaper. Thursday arrived with the first real snow. The acquisition had closed successfully, adding hundreds of millions to her worth, but victory felt hollow compared to seeing the stranger who'd become her most stable presence. 3 blocks from Rustler's, a deer appeared in her headlight, frozen mid-road. Olivia hit the brakes, felt the Harley slide on black ice. The bike went down hard, throwing her against asphalt, tearing through leather jacket and leaving her legs scraped and bleeding. She got the bike upright, but blood soaked through makeshift tissues. By Rustler's, she was shaky and unfocused, blood spotting the floor with each step. The comfortable anonymity she'd cultivated felt fragile, threatened by becoming an object of concern. Olivia needed something immediate to stop the bleeding. Her usual resources, phone, credit cards, money, were useless. Her eyes swept the bar and landed on Daniel, who turned to watch her approach. She walked directly to him, ignoring startled looks, grabbed his shirt with both hands and tore it open violently. Fabric gave way like a gunshot, buttons scattering, leaving his chest exposed to sudden attention. Olivia pressed torn cotton against her bleeding leg, feeling immediate relief as fabric absorbed blood. But even focusing on treating her wound, she became aware of what her desperate action had revealed. Daniel's chest bore unmistakable military artwork, eagle globe and anchor marking him, Marines surrounded by ink, speaking of service sacrifice experiences, far from civilian bars. But it was the long scar running diagonally across his ribs that truly caught her attention, the kind of wound that should have been fatal. The entire bar fell silent, not because a wealthy woman had torn a stranger's shirt, but because of what that tattoo represented in a community where military service commanded respect above everything. Olivia looked up to find him watching with unreadable expression. His exposure was clearly unwelcome. Everything suggested a man who'd chosen anonymity, deliberately just stripped away without warning. But no anger showed, only resigned acceptance that reminded her of soldiers who'd learned to adapt to circumstances beyond control. "Who are you?" she whispered the question, carrying months of curiosity and sudden recognition that she'd been sharing space with someone far more complex than imagined. He looked at her long moment expression, cycling through quick, complicated emotions. When he spoke, voice quiet enough for only her to hear, despite absolute bar silence. "Daniel Walker, Staff Sergeant, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. And you just tore up the only decent shirt I own." Despite blood, pain, and public spectacle, Olivia almost smiled at his dry humor. But the smile faded, realizing what her desperate action had cost him. Seeking help, she'd stripped away precious anonymity, exposing him to unwelcome recognition. "I'm sorry, I'll buy you 10 shirts, 100, whatever you need." Daniel shook his head, somehow conveying both dismissal and forgiveness. "It's just a shirt. You're bleeding." His practical concern, focusing on her need over his discomfort, revealed more about his character than months of observation. Here was someone who'd learned to put others' welfare before his own comfort, even hard-won and carefully protected comfort. Tommy appeared with a first aid kit. "Let's get you fixed up," he told Olivia, then looked at Daniel with new respect. "Sergeant, there's clean shirts in the office." "Staff Sergeant," Daniel corrected quietly, walking toward the back. Olivia let Tommy clean and bandage her leg, but watched the doorway Daniel had disappeared through. His military revelation had shifted the bar's atmosphere beyond surprise. Other patrons looked at his empty stool with new understanding. When Daniel returned wearing an ill-fitting Rustler's t-shirt, the dynamic between them had fundamentally changed. No longer anonymous strangers, but two people who'd revealed themselves in ways that couldn't be taken back. Tommy brought fresh drinks without being asked, whiskey for her, beer for him. The bartender's eyes lingered respectfully on Daniel before moving away, giving them privacy that felt deliberate. "I owe you more than a shirt," Olivia said when he sat down. "You don't owe me anything." They sat in different silence, no longer about maintaining distance, but pause before revelation, equilibrium, before everything shifted. "How long?" Olivia asked finally. "4 tours. Afghanistan, Iraq, back to Afghanistan. Got out 3 years ago." "Why here? Why Rustlers?" Daniel was quiet so long Olivia thought he wouldn't answer. "Sometimes you need to be somewhere nobody knows what you've done or seen. Somewhere you can just be another guy having a beer." At least that was the plan. Olivia felt the full impact of what her actions had cost, destroying the sanctuary he'd carefully constructed. But underneath guilt was recognition that revelation had been inevitable. Their careful dance always moving toward this exposure moment. I'm Olivia Reed. I run Reed Technologies, and I come here for the same reason to be somebody else for a while. Daniel nodded as if her revelation made perfect sense. I know who you are. Figured it out second week. The motorcycle, how you carry yourself, cash tips, no credit cards. You're trying not to be recognized. Surprise flickered across Olivia's face. But you never said anything. Wasn't my business. We all got reasons for needing a place like this. Now quiet filled with recognition that boundaries had dissolved entirely. Olivia studied Daniel's profile, seeing details differently. Alertness made sense for someone with combat experience. Exit assessment was training that saved lives overseas. Couldn't easily turn off at home. What do you do now? Construction, renovation work, mostly small jobs. Residential keeps me busy outdoors, pays the bills. Do you have family, kids? The question produced unexpected reaction. Daniel's posture changed, shoulders tightening with pain mixed with determination. I have a daughter, Alice. She's 7. Olivia waited, sensing there was more to the story. Not mine biologically. She was my buddy's kid. Tom Reeves, my teammate, died in our last deployment. IED outside Kandahar. Alice's mom couldn't handle single parenting. Signed her over before taking off for California with some guy. Olivia felt something shift in her chest. You're raising her alone. 2 years now. She's why I come here on schedule. Why I'm always home by 9:30. She's why I need somewhere to sit quiet for a couple hours and remember who I used to be before becoming somebody's dad. The revelation hit Olivia with unexpected force. All those months wondering about his story, never considering his careful routines might be built around caring for a child. His schedule, precision, money management, seeking silence over conversation, it all made sense. That's why you helped me that night. You know what it's like being responsible for someone who can't take care of themselves. Daniel nodded. Kid needs me reliable. Can't do that if I'm not taking care of myself, and I can't do that without somewhere to go when walls start closing in. They processed implications of what had been shared. Olivia realized her impulsive action had potentially disrupted the careful balance he'd created between fatherly responsibilities and personal space needs. You got nothing to be sorry for, Daniel said before she could apologize again. You were hurt, needed help, took what was available. That's being smart, but your privacy was always going to end eventually. Maybe it's better this way, getting it over with, instead of wondering when somebody would figure it out. Olivia looked around, noting how other patrons carefully avoided staring while remaining intensely interested. Daniel's military revelation had changed more than their relationship. It altered his standing in the entire Rustlers community. They look at you differently now. That's how it goes. Once people know you were over there, they either put you on a pedestal or treat you like you might snap. Neither's particularly comfortable. What if we didn't have to choose? What if there was a third option? Daniel looked at her directly. What kind of third option? What if instead of being strangers who happen to drink at the same bar, we tried being friends who understand why each other needs this place? The suggestion hung between them like a bridge that could be crossed or abandoned. Olivia held her breath, uncertain whether she was offering salvation or destruction for their careful equilibrium. Daniel traced patterns on the bar's wooden surface. Friends is complicated. Alice asks about everything. Where I go, who I see, why I'm gone. If I start having friends, she's going to want to know about them. She's 7. She'll ask 50,000 questions and remember every answer. Would that be so terrible? Depends on what kind of friend you're talking about being. Olivia realized they'd arrived at a definition moment, determining not just their relationship, but possibly their entire life trajectories. Careful boundaries were gone, stripped by circumstances that couldn't be undone. What remained was choosing what to build in their place. The kind who understands you need to be home by 9:30 because you have a daughter waiting. Who knows, sometimes you need to sit in silence without explaining yourself. Who won't try changing your routines or making demands you can't meet. Daniel nodded slowly, weighing her words against internal standards. And what kind of friend would you need me to be? The question forced Olivia to confront her own motivations. The kind who won't judge me for needing to escape my own life sometimes. Who understands being successful doesn't mean being happy. That money can't buy what actually matters. Who sees me as Olivia instead of Olivia Reed, CEO? And you think we can do that? Be those kinds of friends? Olivia considered honestly weighing complications against unexpected rightness in this moment of complete honesty. I think we've already been doing it for months. We just hadn't named it yet. Daniel smiled genuinely for the first time since she'd torn his shirt transformation, giving Olivia a glimpse of who he might be without vigilance and responsibility weight. All right, friends, he said. But we keep coming here, keep our routines. This place matters to both of us, and I won't mess with something that works. For Alice's sake. Agreed. Same time, same stools, same understanding. We don't have to fill every silence, but maybe sometimes we do fill them. They shook hands solemnly, the gesture carrying more weight than any contract Olivia had ever signed. In that moment, as blood dried on her jeans and his borrowed shirt hung loose on his frame, something shifted in the universe of possibilities. Two people who had carefully constructed walls to keep the world at bay had accidentally and deliberately created a door. What lay beyond was uncertain, but for the first time in years, both felt something unfamiliar stirring in their carefully protected hearts. It might have been hope. Over the following weeks, their friendship deepened. Olivia met Alice on a Saturday afternoon, a bright 7-year-old with chestnut hair and eyes that assessed the world with the same watchful intensity as her adoptive father. The child approached strangers with the frank assessment only children brought to new adults in their orbit. "You're the motorcycle lady?" Alice asked, studying Olivia with undisguised curiosity. They sat in a small playground near Daniel's apartment, Alice swinging her legs from a bench. "I am," Olivia replied, surprised by her own nervousness. She'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, yet this child's approval felt strangely crucial. "Dad says your motorcycle is really cool. He used to have one too before I came to live with him." Olivia glanced at Daniel, who shrugged slightly. It was nothing like hers. "Do you know how to do a wheelie?" Alice continued. "I do, but only in safe places, never on public roads." Alice nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. "That's responsible. Dad says being responsible means doing fun things safely, not never doing them at all." Olivia smiled, recognizing Daniel's practical philosophy. "Your dad's pretty smart." "He says I'm smarter." Alice hopped off the bench. "Want to see me on the monkey bars? I can do all the way across without stopping." As Alice demonstrated her prowess, Olivia watched Daniel watching his niece. The tenderness in his gaze revealed more than any conversation could. "She's remarkable," Olivia said quietly. "She is. Looks just like her father." A shadow crossed his face. Tom was always the bright one. Better student, better Marine, better at everything except getting home alive. The raw honesty caught Olivia off guard. "You don't talk about him much." "Not much to say that matters now. He's gone. I'm here. She's my responsibility." "She's more than a responsibility to you." Daniel met her eyes. "Yeah, she's everything." The simplicity of his devotion touched something deep in Olivia, something long dormant. She'd built an empire on calculated risks and strategic alliances, but Daniel had committed to something far more demanding, with no guaranteed return. "Do you like my dad?" Alice asked during their second meeting at a local diner. The question came between bites of pancake, catching Olivia mid-sip of coffee. "I do. He's a good man." "Are you going to marry him?" Coffee nearly sprayed across the table. "That's not we're friends, Alice." "But you look at him funny, like you want to kiss him." Olivia found herself blushing an unfamiliar sensation. Sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out. Alice nodded sagely. "My dad needs someone who makes him smile more. You make him smile." The observation stayed with Olivia through Christmas and into the new year. Their friendship had indeed made Daniel smile more, made him seem less burdened by invisible weights. But something else was happening too. Something Olivia hadn't anticipated. She was changing. The ruthless CEO who dominated boardrooms now sometimes left early to attend Alice's school science fair. The woman who once measured relationships by strategic value now found herself collecting small gifts that might make a 7-year-old smile. The executive who never missed a meeting had rescheduled an investor call because Daniel needed someone to watch Alice during a doctor's appointment. Olivia had built walls around herself for protection, but a 7-year-old had simply walked through them as if they weren't there. Then came the night Alice spiked a fever of 103 and everything changed again. Olivia's phone rang at 11:30 p.m., Daniel's voice tight with controlled panic. Alice is burning up. I need to get her to the emergency room, but my car won't start. I'm on my way. 10 minutes. Olivia was already pulling on clothes, grabbing keys. The scene at Daniel's apartment was controlled chaos. Alice lay on the couch unusually still, face flushed with fever. Daniel moved with military efficiency, gathering insurance cards, medications, a small backpack of essentials. Her temperature won't come down, he explained, voice steady but eyes betraying his fear. Started climbing about 3 hours ago. In the emergency room, Olivia witnessed a new side of Daniel. The quiet, reserved man became a fierce advocate, providing medical history with precision questioning treatments, standing guard over his niece with the vigilance of a sentinel. When doctors suggested admitting Alice for observation, he nodded once decisive. I'll stay with her. He said the possibility of doing otherwise clearly non-existent. I'll stay too, Olivia heard herself say. The words emerged without calculation or strategy, simply truth. Daniel looked at her, something complicated passing behind his eyes. You don't have to. I know. They spent the night in uncomfortable hospital chairs watching Alice's chest rise and fall, monitors beeping reassurance. Around 3 a.m., with Alice finally sleeping peacefully as antibiotics battled her infection, Daniel stepped into the hallway to call his employer, explaining he wouldn't make his morning shift. When he returned, frustration etched in the lines around his mouth. Olivia Barn understood immediately. They gave you a hard time. Third sick day this quarter. Supervisor reminded me about company policy. The quotation marks hung heavy in his voice. That's ridiculous. She's in the hospital. That's life when you're replaceable. He sank back into the chair beside Alice's bed. There are 50 guys waiting for my job. Construction's competitive, especially in winter when work slows down. Olivia felt anger rising on his behalf. It's not right. Right doesn't pay rent. Daniel's hand gently smoothed Alice's hair. I'll figure it out. Always do. When morning came, Olivia reluctantly prepared to leave for an unavoidable board meeting. Standing at the hospital room door, she hesitated. Do you need anything? Money for medical bills or... We're covered. Daniel's voice cooled noticeably. Military benefits. I didn't mean to imply... I know what you meant, Olivia. His tone softened slightly. We're good. Go run your company. Olivia left feeling unsettled, aware she'd crossed some invisible line. The easy companionship they'd built felt suddenly fragile. At the board meeting, she found herself distracted, checking her phone for updates. When Daniel finally texted that Alice was responding well to antibiotics and would likely be discharged the next day, Olivia felt relief wash over her with surprising intensity. That evening, she stopped by the hospital with takeout from an upscale restaurant, books for Alice and coffee that wasn't hospital-grade sludge. Alice was awake, color returning to her cheeks, animatedly describing a nurse who had drawn dinosaurs on her bandages. While Alice ate, Olivia noticed the hospital bill on Daniel's tray. Despite his assurances about military benefits, the out-of-pocket expenses were substantial. She said nothing but made a mental note. The next day after Alice was discharged, Olivia quietly arranged for the hospital bill to be paid anonymously. It seemed the perfect solution, helping without undermining Daniel's pride. She didn't anticipate how quickly he'd figure it out. 3 days later, he was waiting at their usual spot at Rustler's Expression, thunderous. Before Olivia could even sit, he slid an envelope across the bar. What's this? She asked, though she suspected. Reimbursement. His voice was controlled, but tension radiated from him. For the hospital bill you paid without asking me. Olivia felt heat rise to her face. How did you? The billing department was very impressed by the anonymous benefactor who happened to call right after we left. His eyes met hers, hard as flint. I don't need your charity, Olivia. It wasn't charity. What would you call it? The bar seemed suddenly too small, too public for this conversation. Can we talk somewhere else? They walked in silence to a small park nearby, empty in the January cold. Olivia wrapped her coat tighter, organizing her thoughts. I was trying to help, she finally said. I don't need that kind of help. Why not? Frustration edged her voice. You were worried about missing work, about medical expenses. I have more money than I'll ever need. Why not let me help? Because it's not about the money. Daniel's breath clouded in the cold air. It's about Alice seeing that her father can take care of her, that we can stand on our own. She wouldn't have known. I would have known. His jaw tightened. Look, Olivia, I appreciate what you were trying to do, but you can't just throw money at problems and expect everything to be fixed. That's not what I was doing. Isn't it? His gaze was unflinching. It's how you solve problems at work, isn't it? Company needs expansion, acquire it. Technology gap, buy a startup. Employee trouble, offer more money. The assessment hit uncomfortably close to home. That's business. This isn't business. This is my life, Alice's life. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. I can't be a charity case, Olivia. I can't be your project. Is that what you think this is, a project? I don't know what this is anymore. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Olivia felt something tightening in her chest, a pressure that made it difficult to breathe. For the first time in years, she was facing a problem she couldn't solve with money or power or strategic thinking. You're right, she finally said. I overstepped. I'm sorry. Daniel's posture relaxed slightly, surprise flickering across his features. Apparently, CEO Olivia Reed didn't apologize often. I'm not used to this, she continued, gesturing vaguely between them. Friendship without agenda. Caring about someone without expecting something in return. It's not how my world usually works. How does your world work? Transactions, calculations, cost-benefit analysis. Olivia laughed without humor. Sounds pretty cold when I say it out loud. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Why did you really pay that bill, Olivia? The directness of the question cut through her usual defenses. Because I was scared too. When Alice was sick. Because I've never seen you afraid before, and I wanted to fix it. Because she hesitated, surprising herself with her next words. Because you and Alice matter to me. More than I expected. More than makes sense. Something shifted in Daniel's expression. We can't matter to you that way. Why not? Because we're from different worlds, Olivia. This friendship already complicated enough. What if I want complicated? The question hung between them, changing everything. Daniel looked away, his profile sharp against the winter sky. I should get home to Alice, he finally said. Her sitter has to leave by 8. Olivia nodded, recognizing retreat when she saw it. Daniel, I really am sorry about the bill. It won't happen again. I know. He hesitated, then added, see you Thursday. The familiar phrase offered reconciliation of sorts. Thursday, she confirmed. As she watched him walk away, Olivia realized with startling clarity that somewhere along the way, these quiet evenings at Rustler's had become the center of her week, not the escape from her real life, but perhaps the only part that felt authentic. The incident created a new wariness between them, but they continued their routine. January melted into February, and gradually the ease returned to their silences. Olivia was careful to respect the boundaries Daniel had drawn, never offering financial help, treating him as an equal rather than someone to be rescued. Instead, she found other ways to be present. She helped Alice with homework when Daniel worked late. She learned to cook simple meals that a 7-year-old might actually eat. She discovered the small, meaningful ways to support them that had nothing to do with her wealth or position. One Saturday in late February, she took Alice shopping for new sneakers while Daniel worked overtime on a construction project. As they walked through the mall, Alice's small hand in hers, the child looked up with those serious eyes. Are you my dad's girlfriend now? Olivia nearly stumbled. What makes you ask that? You're here a lot, and you look at each other differently now. We're good friends. My friend Zoe's mom says grown-ups are bad at figuring out when they're in love. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. Grown-ups can be complicated. That's what everyone says when they don't want to answer the question. Olivia couldn't help laughing. You're too smart for your own good, you know that. Alice shrugged, accepting the compliment as her due. Dad says I get that from Uncle Tom. The casual mention of her father still came unexpectedly. Does your dad talk about him a lot? Your real dad? Alice considered this. Sometimes, when I ask, he has pictures he shows me, and he tells me stories about when they were kids. That must be nice. Yeah. Alice kicked at a stone on the sidewalk, but sometimes he gets really sad after. I hear him having nightmares. Olivia felt her heart constrict. Nightmares. He yells things, names. Sometimes he calls for Uncle Tom really loud. Alice looked up, her expression far too old for 7. I think he feels bad that he came home and my real dad didn't. The simple insight struck Olivia with the force of revelation. She'd understood Daniel carried survivor's guilt, but hearing it articulated by a child made it suddenly vividly real. Your dad is very brave, Olivia said carefully. Both your dads were. I know. Alice swung their joined hands. That's why he needs someone brave too. Someone who won't leave when things get hard. The perception of this child, the absolute clarity with which she saw adult complexities, was astonishing. You're pretty wise for someone who still needs help tying her shoes sometimes. Alice grinned. I'm working on that. That night, after returning Alice to Daniel, Olivia found herself unable to sleep, the child's words echoing in her mind. Someone brave. Someone who won't leave when things get hard. In her corporate world, Olivia was known for her courage, bold acquisitions, risky ventures, standing her ground in male-dominated spaces. But Alice was talking about a different kind of bravery altogether. The courage to be vulnerable, to risk rejection, to love without guarantee. Olivia had never been that kind of brave. The next week brought a new complication. Victor Kingsley, Olivia's former mentor and now chief competitor, launched a hostile takeover attempt of Reed Technologies. The business press buzzed with speculation about Olivia's leadership, about the company's direction, about her personal life. Sources close to Reed suggest her focus has been divided recently. One particularly biting article noted, the once ruthless CEO has been spotted around Denver with a mysterious single father and his daughter, raising questions about her commitment to shareholders. Olivia stared at her tablet in disbelief. Someone had been watching her, photographing her. The article included a grainy image of her, Daniel, and Alice at the mall. Her phone rang, her head of public relations damage control already in motion. Then her lead counsel discussing legal options. Then her executive assistant rearranging her schedule for emergency board meetings. By the time she arrived at Rustler's that evening, Olivia felt like she'd gone 10 rounds in a boxing match. Daniel was already there, face grim. You've seen it, she said, sliding onto her stool. He nodded. Hard to miss when your coworkers are passing it around the job site. I'm so sorry, Daniel. I never thought. It's fine. His tone suggested it was anything but. Hazard of knowing someone famous, I guess. I've asked my legal team to send the cease and desist letters to any publication that runs the photos. They're threatening invasion of privacy lawsuits. Will that work? It might slow them down, but once something's online, she shrugged helplessly. Daniel took a long pull of his beer. Alice's teacher pulled me aside at drop-off this morning. Said some parents were asking questions. Olivia felt sick. What kind of questions? The kind that suggests they're worried about their kids being friends with the daughter of someone dating a celebrity. His voice was neutral, but Olivia could see the tension in his shoulders. Had to explain that we're just friends, that there's nothing for them to worry about. The words just friends stung more than Olivia expected. I'm sorry. Not your fault, but his eyes said otherwise. They sat in silence, but not their usual comfortable quiet. This silence felt brittle, dangerous. Maybe we should take a break, Olivia finally said, the words tasting like ash. From being seen together. Until this blows over. Daniel studied her face. Is that what you want? Of course not, but I don't want to make things harder for you and Alice either. So your solution is to disappear from her life after becoming important to her. There was an edge to his voice now. That's exactly what she doesn't need, another adult walking away when things get difficult. The criticism landed like a physical blow. That's not fair. I'm trying to protect you both. We don't need protection, Olivia. We need... He stopped, jaw working. Never mind, then. No, say it. What do you need? Daniel met her gaze directly. Commitment. Someone who stays when it gets messy. Who doesn't retreat to their mansion when things get complicated. That's not what I'm doing. Isn't it? He stood, dropping cash on the bar. I need to get home to Alice. Daniel, wait. But he was already walking away, leaving Olivia alone at the bar with the distinct feeling that something precious was slipping through her fingers. The next day, the business news grew worse. Victor Kingsley had called a press conference ostensibly about the takeover bid, but quickly veering into personal territory. I've known Olivia Reed for 15 years, he told the reporters with practiced concern. She's brilliant driven, but lately many of us have worried about her judgment. This distraction in her personal life raises serious questions about her focus. Reed Technologies deserves leadership that puts shareholders first. Olivia watched the footage in her office rage building with each carefully crafted insinuation. Victor had been her mentor, had championed her early career until she'd surpassed him, until her innovations had made his company seem stagnant by comparison. Now he was weaponizing her personal life, using Daniel and Alice as ammunition. She picked up her phone, dialed Daniel's number. It went straight to voicemail. "It's me," she said after the beep. "Things are getting worse with the press. Victor Kingsley's using you and Alice to attack me professionally. I don't care about that. I can handle Victor, but I'm worried about you both. Please call me back. Please." He didn't. 3 days passed without word. Olivia threw herself into defending against the takeover, working 18-hour days, sleeping on her office couch. She kept her phone close, checking constantly for messages that never came. On the fourth day, she decided enough was enough. After her last meeting, she drove to Daniel's apartment building. She'd never gone there uninvited before another boundary she was about to cross. She knocked, heart pounding. Footsteps approached, then stopped. Olivia could feel Daniel's presence on the other side of the door. His hesitation. Finally, the door opened. Daniel looked tired, shadows under his eyes, stubble darker than usual. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. He stepped back, allowing her entry. The apartment was small, but meticulously organized, military precision, evident in the aligned books, the perfectly folded throw blanket, the exactly spaced photographs on the wall. "Where's Alice?" "At a friend's birthday party, sleepover." Daniel gestured toward the couch. "Sit if you want." Olivia perched on the edge of the sofa. "You didn't call me back." "Been busy. Work's been demanding." The excuse sounded hollow even to her ears. "I've been worried about you. Both of you." Daniel remained standing, arms crossed. "We're fine. Are you? Because a week ago you were upset about parents at Alice's school asking questions. Now Victor Kingsley's practically calling you my boy toy on national television. That can't be making things easier." A muscle jumped in Daniel's jaw. "We're handling it." "How?" "I requested a transfer to the Portland site. My company's expanding there, needs experienced crew leaders. Better pay, fresh start. Away from all this." The words hit Olivia like physical blows. "You're leaving, just like that." "It's been in the works for a while. The opportunity came up last month. I was on the fence, but recent events made the decision easier." "When?" "2 weeks. Enough time to finish the Denver project, get Alice registered for the new school term." Olivia felt something crumbling inside her chest. "Were you going to tell me?" "Of course," but he wouldn't meet her eyes. "Oh, when the day you left, or were you just going to disappear?" Anger surged, masking the hurt. "God, Daniel, I thought we meant something to each other." "We do," his voice softened. "That's the problem." "How is that a problem?" Daniel finally sat through, not beside her. He took the chair opposite, maintaining distance. "Because this," he gestured between them, "can't go anywhere. We both know that. You're Olivia Reed, tech visionary, billionaire CEO. I'm a construction worker raising my dead brother's kid. Those worlds don't mix, Olivia. Not really. They've been mixing just fine for months. In secret, at a bar nobody knows about. Away from your real life." The accusation stung because it contained truth. "That's not fair. Isn't it? Have you introduced me to your friends, your colleagues, invited me to your home when you're hosting one of those charity galas? The society pages are always covering." Olivia flushed. "I didn't think you'd want that." "You didn't ask." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Look, I'm not blaming you. This is on both of us. We've been pretending we could keep these worlds separate, but we can't, not anymore. So your solution is to run away to Portland. My solution is to do what's best for Alice. She needs stability, normalcy, not photographers following her to school, not whispers from other parents, not a whatever this is, with someone whose life is a universe away from ours." Olivia felt tears threatening, blinked them back fiercely. "What if I don't want you to go?" Daniel's expression softened. "What are you really asking for, Olivia?" The question hung between them, demanding an answer Olivia wasn't sure she had. "What are you really asking for, Olivia?" The question hung between them, demanding an answer Olivia wasn't sure she had. What did she want the safe, compartmentalized friendship they'd established? Something more. And if more, what would that mean for her carefully constructed life? I don't know, she admitted finally. I just know that the thought of you and Alice disappearing to Portland feels wrong. Daniel studied her face. Wrong how, like I'm losing something important, something irreplaceable. Olivia stood suddenly restless, pacing the small living room. I've built my entire life around acquisition and control. When I want something, I get it. When something's broken, I fix it. But this? I don't know how to fix this. Not everything can be fixed, Olivia. Sometimes things just are what they are. So that's it. We just accept that our worlds are too different and walk away. Daniel's silence was answer enough. Olivia stopped by a bookshelf lined with photographs. Alice as a toddler in Tom's arms. Daniel and Tom in desert camouflage arms, around each other's shoulders squinting in bright sunlight. Alice's school portrait gap-toothed smile radiant. She'll miss you, Daniel said quietly. She asks about you every day you don't come by. The simple statement cracked something in Olivia's chest. I'll miss her too, more than I expected. She touched the edge of a frame. This is new. The photo showed Alice at the science fair proudly displaying her project on seed germination. Olivia stood beside her, both smiling widely. She insisted we print it, said it was her favorite day this year. Olivia remembered that afternoon vividly. She'd canceled 3 meetings to attend, much to her assistant's horror. She'd spent hours helping Alice prepare, explaining scientific method in 7-year-old terms, watching the child's quick mind grasp concepts beyond her years. She's brilliant, you know, Olivia said softly. The way she thinks connects ideas. She could do anything. I know. Pride warmed Daniel's voice. Have you thought about her education, long-term? I mean, of course, I've started a college fund. It's small, but it'll grow. Olivia turned to face him. What if it didn't have to be small? What if she could have the best education possible? Private schools, summer programs, college, wherever she wants. Wariness crept into Daniel's expression. Olivia? No, listen. This isn't charity. It's investment in potential. Olivia moved closer, intensity building. I have a foundation that provides educational grants to exceptional children. Alice would qualify easily. It wouldn't be my money directly, it would be a scholarship based on merit. You'd create a scholarship just for Alice. Not create, we already have them. She'd simply be a recipient. The lie came smoothly, though Olivia knew she'd establish the program tomorrow if he agreed. Daniel's jaw tightened. So your solution is still to throw money at the problem? No. My solution is to ensure a brilliant child has every opportunity to thrive regardless of financial circumstances. Olivia took a steadying breath. Look, I know you're proud. I know you want to provide everything for her yourself. But think about what Tom would want. Wouldn't he want every door open for his daughter? It was a calculated risk invoking Tom. For a moment, Olivia thought she'd gone too far. Daniel's expression darkened, then slowly cleared. That's fighting dirty, he said finally, but without heat. I'm fighting for something that matters. Daniel leaned back, studying her with new awareness. This really isn't about us, is it? It's about Alice. Of course it's about Alice. But even as she said it, Olivia recognized the partial truth. And yes, it's about us too. I don't want to lose either of you. Even if it complicates your life, your company take over defense. Especially then. Olivia sat beside him, close enough to feel his warmth, but not touching. Victor's using you and Alice against me because he thinks you're my weakness. But what if you're actually my strength? What if having something real in my life, people who care about me for myself, not my position or money, is exactly what I've been missing? Something shifted in Daniel's expression. You really believe that? I'm starting to. Olivia hesitated, then reached for his hand. The truth is, I've spent my entire adult life building Reed Technologies. It's been my identity, my purpose. But lately I've been wondering if I've been missing something fundamental. If success without connection is really success at all. Daniel didn't pull away, but he didn't respond to her touch either. That's a pretty big philosophical shift for someone who runs a tech empire. Maybe I'm evolving. Olivia attempted a smile. Isn't that what AI is supposed to do? Learn and adapt? People aren't algorithms, Olivia. No, they're infinitely more complex, more frustrating, more, she searched for the right word, more necessary. A long silence stretched between them. Not the comfortable quiet of rustlers, but something weighted with possibility and risk. I can't promise anything, Daniel finally said. The Portland offer is still on the table. It's a good opportunity, better pay, fresh start. I understand. Olivia withdrew her hand, respecting his boundary. But before you decide, would you and Alice have dinner with me tomorrow? At my house. Surprise flickered across his features. Your house? It's time you saw where I live. Who I am outside the bar. Olivia stood, gathering her courage. No pressure, no agenda. Just dinner with friends. Daniel considered this, then nodded slowly. Alice would like that. And you, a ghost of a smile touched his lips. I admit I'm curious to see how the other half lives. It's settled then. Tomorrow at 7. As Olivia drove home that night, she found herself unusually anxious. Her house had always been a fortress, a private space she rarely shared with anyone outside of carefully orchestrated charity events. Inviting Daniel and Alice into that space felt significant in ways she couldn't fully articulate. The next day, Olivia left work early, another rarity to prepare. She dismissed her housekeeper, wanting to handle the evening herself. She ordered Alice's favorite pizza, set the informal dining room with colorful plates instead of the formal china, and arranged board games in the living room. At precisely 7, the doorbell rang. Olivia smoothed her casual sweater, no power suits tonight, and opened the door. Alice bounced excitedly on the doorstep, clutching a small potted plant. We brought you a housewarming gift. I grew it myself from seeds. Olivia knelt to accept the offering. It's beautiful. Thank you. It's a sunflower, but it hasn't flowered yet. You have to be patient. Patience isn't my best quality, Olivia admitted. But for this, I'll try. Daniel stood behind Alice, looking slightly uncomfortable in dark jeans and a button-down shirt. Nice place, he said, taking in the sprawling mansion. It's too big for one person, Olivia replied honestly, but the view is worth it. She led them through the house, watching their reactions. Alice explored with uninhibited curiosity, asking about artwork and architecture. Daniel moved more cautiously, his military bearing evident in his straight posture and observant gaze. This is bigger than our whole apartment building, Alice announced, spinning in the center of the living room. Alice, Daniel warned quietly. It's okay, Olivia assured him. She's right. It is ridiculous for one person. The evening progressed more easily than Olivia had anticipated. They ate pizza at the dining table, played board games where Alice thoroughly trounced them both, and ended up in the media room watching an animated film on the giant screen. As the movie played, Olivia watched Daniel and Alice instead. The child had curled against her father's side, his arm protective around her shoulders. They fit together perfectly, their bond evident in every casual touch, every shared smile. Something ached in Olivia's chest. She'd spent her life accumulating wealth, power, accomplishments, but never this. Never the simple, profound connection of family. When the movie ended, Alice was drooping with tiredness. I think it's someone's bedtime, Daniel said, checking his watch. Can't we stay a little longer? Alice pleaded, even as she yawned widely. Not tonight, kiddo. School tomorrow. Olivia walked them to the door, oddly reluctant to see them leave. Thank you for coming. Thanks for having us, Daniel replied. It was nice. Nice, Olivia raised an eyebrow. High praise indeed. A genuine smile crossed his face. You know what I mean. Dad, Alice interrupted, tugging his sleeve. Can Olivia come to my play at school next week? Daniel hesitated. Olivia's very busy with work. I'd love to, Olivia interrupted. When is it? Thursday at 7, I'm playing the sun in our solar system play. I have the most lines. Alice beamed with pride. I wouldn't miss it. After they left, Olivia wandered through her empty house, the silence suddenly oppressive. She found herself in the dining room, staring at the dishes they'd left behind. Physical evidence that Daniel and Alice had been there had brought warmth and life to her sterile space. On impulse, she called Victor Kingsley. Olivia, he answered, surprise evident in his voice. It's late. Not too late to make a deal, she replied. I want to meet, Tomorrow, just us, no lawyers, no PR teams. Intriguing. May I ask what prompted this sudden desire for negotiation? Olivia looked at Alice's sunflower seedling on the counter. Let's just say I've gained some perspective on what matters. The next morning, Olivia entered Victor's office with confidence that surprised even her. The past week's anxiety had crystallized into clear-eyed determination. You look well, Victor observed, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. Not at all like someone fighting a hostile takeover. That's because I'm not fighting anymore. Olivia placed a folder on his desk. I'm offering a counter-proposal. Victor's eyebrows rose as he scanned the document. A merger, you have been adamantly against this for years. Times change, people change. Olivia leaned forward. Reed Technologies has the superior AI architecture. Kingsley Tech has better market penetration and distribution networks. Together, we could dominate the industry for decades. And your role in this merged entity, co-CEO for 3 years focusing on R&D and strategic vision. After that, I stepped back to board chair and strategic advisor. Victor's surprise was evident. You're willingly reducing your operational role. I'm prioritizing differently these days. Understanding dawned in Victor's eyes. This is about the construction worker and his daughter. Olivia kept her expression neutral. This is about recognizing that life is about more than corporate dominance. I never thought I'd see the day. Victor leaned back, studying her. The Olivia Reed I've known for 15 years would burn the building down before ceding control. Maybe you never really knew me. Or maybe you're changing. Victor tapped the proposal thoughtfully. I'll need to review this with my team. Of course, but the personal attacks stop now. My private life is off limits. That's non-negotiable. Victor had the grace to look slightly abashed. Business is business, Olivia. I saw vulnerability and exploited it. You'd have done the same. Not anymore. Well, Olivia stood. We can be competitors without being cruel. That's the kind of leader I want to be moving forward. As she left Victor's office, Olivia felt lighter than she had in weeks. Whether he accepted her proposal or not, she'd taken control of the narrative. More importantly, she'd finally articulated the shift happening within herself, the recognition that her definition of success was evolving. Thursday evening found her slipping into the back of an elementary school auditorium, searching the crowd for Daniel. She spotted him in the third row, saving a seat with his jacket. You made it, he said as she slid in beside him. I said I would. Olivia settled into the small chair, uncomfortably aware of curious glances from other parents. How's she doing? Nervous, excited. She made me take video of her practicing all week. The lights dimmed and children in various planetary costumes paraded onto stage. Alice, resplendent in yellow and orange, took center position as the sun. Her clear voice carried through the auditorium as she described her role in the solar system. Olivia found herself unexpectedly moved. This small person, this brilliant light at the center of Daniel's universe, had somehow become important to her too. When had that happened? How had her carefully ordered life expanded to include a 7-year-old astronomer and her quiet, complicated father? After the performance, they waited in the hallway while Alice changed out of her costume. Daniel seemed uncharacteristically hesitant. I've been thinking about your offer, he finally said. The educational grant for Alice. Olivia tensed, preparing for rejection. I'd like to learn more about it. If it's legitimate, truly based on merit, I'd consider it. Relief washed through her. It is. I'll send you the details. And about Portland, Daniel glanced around the crowded hallway. I've decided to delay making a decision. For now. Olivia carefully controlled her expression. Any particular reason? Alice has friends here. Her school is good, and... He met her eyes directly. There are other considerations. Before Olivia could respond, Alice burst from the classroom, still glowing with performance adrenaline. Did you see me? Was I loud enough? Did I look like a real sun? You were perfect, Olivia assured her. The brightest star in the scheme. Alice beamed, then looked between the adults with sudden seriousness. Can Olivia come for ice cream with us? It's tradition after performances. Daniel nodded. If she wants to. I'd be honored, Olivia replied. As they walked toward the parking lot, Alice slipped her small hand into Olivia's. The simple gesture, trusting unguarded, felt more significant than any business deal Olivia had ever closed. Olivia, Alice said thoughtfully, if you and Dad got married, would you be my mom? Olivia nearly stumbled. Daniel's expression froze in mortification. Alice, we're not, he stammered. It's a hypothetical question, Alice explained with dignity. Ms. Jenkins says hypothetical questions help develop critical thinking. Olivia suppressed a smile at the child's clever deflection. Hypothetically speaking, she answered carefully, if your dad and I ever got married, I wouldn't try to replace your mom, but I would hope we could be special to each other in our own way. Alice considered this with typical seriousness. I think I'd like that, hypothetically. She skipped ahead to the car, leaving the adults in uncomfortable silence. Sorry about that, Daniel finally said. She gets ideas. It's okay. Kids wonder about things. Still, I don't want you to think. I don't. Olivia paused, then added, unless, Daniel glanced at her sharply, unless, Olivia's heart hammered, unless someday, hypothetically, you might wonder too. The moment stretched between them, electric with possibility. Then Alice called from the pier, breaking the tension. We should go, Daniel said, but his eyes held Olivia's a beat longer than necessary. Ice cream awaits. As they drove to the ice cream parlor, Olivia's phone buzzed with an incoming call from her CFO. Ordinarily, she would have answered immediately. Tonight, she silenced the ringer without a second thought. At the ice cream shop, they settled into a corner booth. Alice, with chocolate smeared across her chin, regaled them with backstage drama from the play. Tommy was supposed to be Mars, but he got scared and threw up in the trash can, so Ms. Jenkins had to be Mars instead, but she didn't know the lines. Olivia laughed, enchanted by the child's animated storytelling. Across the table, she caught Daniel watching her with an unreadable expression. What? She asked quietly while Alice was distracted by a sprinkle counting contest with herself. Nothing, just... He hesitated. You're different with her. Different how? Softer, more present. A small smile touched his lips. Less CEO, more Olivia. The observation struck her with unexpected force. She was different with Alice, more authentic, less guarded. The realization was both unsettling and liberating. Is that a good thing? She asked, uncharacteristically vulnerable. I think so. Daniel's eyes held hers. I like seeing who you are beneath the armor. The moment was interrupted by Alice's triumphant announcement that her ice cream contained exactly 147 sprinkles, give or take 5, because some melted too fast to count. Outside the ice cream shop, Olivia's phone buzzed again, Victor Kingsley this time. With a sigh, she answered, Victor, can this wait until tomorrow? I'm afraid not. His voice was tight with controlled excitement. The board's reviewed your proposal. We want to move forward, but with modifications. Can you meet tonight? Olivia glanced at Daniel and Alice, who were examining a poster for an upcoming street fair. Not tonight, Victor. I'm with friends. Friends. The word carried a weight of skepticism. The construction worker and his daughter. Is that really the best use of your time right now? Something hardened in Olivia's chest. Actually, yes, it is. Olivia, be reasonable. This merger will reshape the industry. It's the culmination of everything you have worked for. And it will still be there tomorrow morning. Olivia kept her voice level but firm. We'll meet at 9, my office. She hung up before he could protest, sliding the phone back into her pocket. Daniel had turned, catching the end of her conversation. Business emergency, he asked, no judgment in his tone. Victor wants to discuss the merger. It can wait. Daniel studied her face. You sure sounds important. It is important, but so is this. Olivia gestured to include the three of them. I'm learning to distinguish between urgent and important. They're not always the same thing. Something shifted in Daniel's expression, respect perhaps, or recognition. He nodded once, understanding, passing between them without words. Later, as they walked Olivia to her car, Alice yawned widely. Can Olivia come see my earthworms tomorrow? Olivia has an important meeting tomorrow, Daniel reminded her gently. After the meeting, Alice persisted, the worms are most active in the afternoon anyway. Olivia smiled at the child's persistence. I'd love to see your earthworms tomorrow afternoon. If that works for your dad. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. We'll be home after 3. The next morning, Olivia met with Victor to finalize the merger terms. He was surprisingly amenable to her conditions, including the ironclad clause protecting her personal privacy. You've changed, he observed as they wrapped up the meeting. There was a time when nothing mattered more to you than being the sole power at Reed Technologies. There was a time when I confused success with control, Olivia replied. I'm starting to recognize the difference. After the meeting, Olivia drove to Daniel's apartment, looking forward to her earthworm date with Alice. She found them in the small community garden behind the building, Alice proudly showing off her compost bin, teeming with wiggling red worms. They eat food scraps and poop out soil, Alice explained enthusiastically. It's called casting, and it's the best fertilizer ever. That's fascinating, Olivia said, genuinely impressed by the child's knowledge. Daniel watched them from a nearby bench, amusement playing across his features. Olivia, in her designer clothes, kneeling in the dirt beside his daughter, examining worms with the same intensity she might analyze quarterly reports. Later, as Alice skipped ahead to show her plant collection, Daniel fell into step beside Olivia. You didn't have to come, he said quietly. Worm viewing isn't exactly a standard CEO activity. I wanted to. Olivia met his eyes. This is more important than another budget meeting. Daniel studied her face. You really mean that? I do. Olivia paused, gathering her courage. I signed the merger agreement with Victor this morning. Daniel's eyebrows rose. That's big news. It is. I'll be co-CEO for 3 years, then step back to an advisory role. You're giving up control of your company. I'm gaining something else. Olivia looked ahead at Alice, who was carefully showing another child her worm bin. Time, perspective, the chance to figure out what I really want my life to be about. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. And what do you want it to be about? The question hung between them, weighted with possibilities. Before Olivia could answer, Alice came running back, grabbing both their hands. Mrs. Peterson says we can have pizza in the garden. Everyone's bringing something to share. Can we stay, Dad? Please. Daniel glanced at Olivia. Do you have time? The old Olivia would have made an excuse, would have retreated to the safety of her corporate world. This new version simply smiled. I have all the time in the world. As the impromptu garden party unfolded around them, Olivia found herself drawn into the community Daniel and Alice had built here. Neighbors brought food, shared gardening tips, fussed over Alice. No one seemed particularly impressed by Olivia's wealth or position. They were more interested in her opinion on tomato varieties and composting techniques. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, Olivia felt herself relaxing into simple human connection without agenda or calculation. Daniel noticed the change, his eyes catching hers across the gathering, a question in them she wasn't ready to answer. But later, as they walked back to the apartment building, Alice running ahead with newfound friends, Daniel's hand brushed against hers. Not taking it, not yet, but acknowledging the possibility. Portland's looking less appealing every day, he said quietly. Olivia's heart stuttered. Is it? Alice is happy here. She has friends, school, her garden. And what about you? Olivia asked, the question loaded with unspoken meaning. What would make you happy? Daniel's gaze was steady, unflinching. I'm starting to figure that out. The air between them crackled with potential, with choices not yet made, but suddenly possible. Olivia recognized the feeling from countless business negotiations, that pivotal moment when everything could change if you were brave enough to take the risk. But this wasn't business. This was life. Real life with a real man and his real daughter, both of whom had already experienced too much loss. I should go, Olivia said softly. Early meeting tomorrow. Daniel nodded, understanding in his eyes. Earthworm viewing takes a lot out of you. It's been quite educational. Olivia smiled, then grew serious. Thank you for today, for letting me be part of this. Thank you for wanting to be part of it. As Olivia drove home, she realized something profound had shifted. The fortress-like mansion awaiting her no longer represented achievement. It highlighted absence. The corporate empire she'd built suddenly seemed hollow compared to the rich community life she'd glimpsed that afternoon. For the first time in her carefully controlled life, Olivia Reed was facing a future she couldn't predict or manage, and the possibility thrilled rather than terrified her. 2 weeks after the garden party, Olivia sat in her office staring at the merger documents spread across her desk. The final signatures had been collected, the press releases drafted. By tomorrow morning, Reed Kingsley Technologies would officially exist with Olivia and Victor as co-CEOs. She should have been celebrating. Instead, she found herself thinking about Daniel and Alice, wondering what they were doing on this sunny Saturday afternoon. Probably gardening or working on one of Alice's endless science projects, or simply enjoying the kind of ordinary weekend she hadn't experienced in years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Alice's science project won first place. She's insufferable with pride. Thought you'd want to know. Olivia smiled, remembering how they'd worked together on the project testing soil pH levels from different locations around the city. She'd found herself completely absorbed in the simple experiment, forgetting deadlines and acquisitions in favor of watching a child's excitement over chemistry. Congratulations to the brilliant scientist, she texted back, first of many awards to come. The reply came quickly. She says you have to come celebrate. Pizza and ice cream, non-negotiable terms. Tell her I accept her terms. What time? As she drove to their apartment that evening, Olivia reflected on how much had changed. These impromptu visits had become regular over the past weeks. She'd find herself driving to their place after work or meeting them at the park on weekends. Daniel no longer seemed surprised when she appeared, and Alice had started saving things to show her interesting rocks art projects, books she was reading. They hadn't defined what was happening between them. There had been no dramatic declarations, no passionate embraces, just a slow, steady dissolution of boundaries, a gradual intertwining of lives. Alois opened the door before Olivia could knock, launching herself into a hug. I won. Ms. Peterson said my project was the most scientifically rigorous in the whole grade. That's amazing. Olivia lifted the child in a celebratory spin. I knew you'd blow them away. Daniel watched from the kitchen doorway, dish towel in hand, expressions softening at the sight of them together. Pizza's on its way. Hope you like pepperoni and mushroom. Perfect. Olivia set Alice down, suddenly aware of the domesticity of the moment. She'd entered without knocking. Daniel wasn't surprised to see her. Alice hugged her without hesitation. Somehow, when she wasn't looking, they'd become what family seemed too presumptuous, friends too inadequate. I brought something, Olivia said, retrieving a package from her bag, for the victorious scientist. Alice tore into the wrapping paper, revealing a professional-grade microscope. Her eyes widened comically. Is this a real microscope like actual scientists use? It's the same model we have in the Reed Technologies Research Lab, Olivia confirmed, though I think you'll make more exciting discoveries than our engineers. Alice's arms wrapped around Olivia's waist in another fierce hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're welcome, sweetheart. You've earned it. The endearment slipped out naturally, but Olivia caught Daniel's slight start. They'd been careful about such things, mindful of the emotional implications. Alice seemed not to notice, already unboxing her treasure with reverent hands. This is too much, Daniel said quietly when Alice was absorbed in examining the microscope's features. It's not. Olivia met his eyes. She deserves the best tools to pursue her passion. That microscope probably cost more than my first car. And it's worth every penny to see her face light up like that. Daniel studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Something had shifted between them again, another invisible barrier dissolving. The evening unfolded in comfortable domesticity, pizza on the coffee table, showing off her science fair certificate, ice cream sundaes with excessive toppings. Olivia found herself laughing more than she had in years, fully present in a way that board meetings and strategy sessions never allowed. When Alice finally succumbed to the excitement of the day, falling asleep on the couch mid-sentence, Daniel carried her to bed. Olivia began quietly cleaning up, washing ice cream bowls, folding the pizza box for recycling. The simple tasks felt unfamiliar but satisfying. Daniel returned, pausing in the doorway to watch her. You don't have to do that. I don't mind. Olivia dried her hands on a dish towel. It's nice, actually. Normal. Is that what you want, normal? The question hung between them, carrying more weight than its simple words suggested. I'm starting to think so. Olivia leaned against the counter. My whole life has been exceptional achievement, exceptional wealth, exceptional pressure. I'm not sure I ever stopped to consider whether that was making me happy. And is it making you happy? Olivia considered this carefully. Parts of it. I love building something meaningful, solving complex problems, seeing my ideas become reality. But the endless competition, the constant struggle to prove myself in a male-dominated industry, the loneliness of leadership, those parts are exhausting. Daniel nodded, understanding in his eyes. What would you change if you could? Balance, I think. What I have at work and what I have. She gestured vaguely to include the apartment, him, Alice, here. They've been completely separate worlds. I'm starting to wonder if they have to be. Daniel moved closer, leaning against the counter beside her. Their shoulders nearly touched. What would that look like? Those worlds colliding? I don't know exactly. Olivia turned to face him. But I'd like to find out. The air between them charged with possibility. Daniel's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes, questioning. Olivia felt her heart accelerate. This moment had been building for months since that first night she'd torn his shirt open in Rustlers. Dad, Alice's sleepy voice broke the tension. She stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. I had a bad dream. Daniel straightened immediately. I'm coming, sweetheart. Olivia smiled, understanding in her eyes. I should go. It's getting late. You don't have to. It's okay. Alice needs you. Olivia gathered her purse. Tomorrow's a big day anyway. The merger announcement. Daniel walked her to the door. Good luck tomorrow. Though I'm guessing luck has nothing to do with how you operate. Usually not, Olivia admitted. But I'll take all the good wishes I can get. They stood awkwardly at the threshold, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Finally, Daniel leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her cheek. Good night, Olivia. The simple gesture left her skin tingling all the way home. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Olivia dressed with particular care, choosing a power suit in deep emerald that matched her eyes. Today marked the beginning of a new chapter for Reed Technologies, and perhaps for her personally as well. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. She arrived early, reviewing her notes and mentally preparing for the barrage of questions that would follow the announcement. Victor appeared at 9:45, immaculate in his tailored suit, expression unreadable. Ready to change the world? He asked, straightening his tie. Ready to try, Olivia replied. The press room filled quickly. Journalists from every major tech publication jostled for position, cameras at the ready. Olivia scanned the crowd, recognizing familiar faces from years of coverage. This was her element, poised, controlled, commanding attention without effort. Victor stepped to the podium first, delivering a polished speech about synergy and market dominance. When he introduced Olivia as his esteemed colleague and partner, his smile seemed genuine enough. Olivia took her place at the microphone, feeling the weight of expectation from the assembled press. Today marks not just a merger of companies, but a merger of visions, she began. Her prepared remarks flowed smoothly, highlighting the technological innovations that would emerge from their combined resources. The audience responded with appropriate enthusiasm, laptops clicking as reporters transcribed her words. Then came the questions. Most were predictable timelines for integration, potential layoffs, stock projections. Olivia and Victor fielded them with practiced ease, presenting a united front despite their competitive history. Until James Harlow from Tech Insider stood up. Ms. Reed, many industry observers have expressed surprise at your willingness to share leadership after years of sole control. Some suggest your recent personal distractions may have influenced this decision. Would you care to comment? The room fell silent. Victor tensed beside her, clearly expecting an explosion. The old Olivia might have eviscerated Harlow with a cutting remark or simply refused to dignify the question with a response. Instead, she smiled. That's an interesting perspective, James. I'd like to offer another one. Olivia leaned slightly forward, commanding the room's attention. What you call distractions, I call growth. For 15 years, I've defined success exclusively through corporate achievements. Recently, I've expanded that definition to include personal fulfillment as well. Murmurs rippled through the audience. This was not the Olivia Reed they knew. This merger represents my evolution as a leader. I've recognized that sometimes sharing power creates something stronger than solitary control. Sometimes the most visionary path forward involves collaboration rather than competition. She paused, letting her words sink in. So yes, my personal life has influenced my professional decisions by making me a more balanced, insightful leader. The room erupted with follow-up questions, but Olivia simply smiled and gestured to the next reporter. Victor shot her an appraising look somewhere between impressed and concerned. The press conference concluded 30 minutes later. As the journalist filed out, Victor touched Olivia's elbow. That was unexpected, he said quietly. Too personal, refreshingly honest. Victor studied her face. He's changed you, this construction worker. Daniel, Olivia corrected. His name is Daniel, and yes, he has. For the better, I think. Time will tell. Victor's tone was neutral, but his eyes held a warning. The board will be watching closely. They're still not entirely convinced about your focus. My work will speak for itself, Olivia replied, as it always has. After Victor left, Olivia checked her phone. 3 texts from Daniel. Watching the press conference online, you're killing it. Alice says you look pretty in green. That reporter was out of line. Your answer was perfect. Warmth spread through her chest. He'd been watching. They'd been watching together. Thank you, she texted back, both of you. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and interviews. By evening, Olivia was exhausted but satisfied. The market had responded positively to the merger announcement, with stock prices climbing steadily throughout the day. She was packing up her briefcase when her assistant knocked on the door. Ms. Reed, there's someone here to see you. Olivia looked up surprised. I don't have any more appointments today. He says it's personal. A Mr. Walker. Her heart jumped. Send him in, please. Daniel entered looking slightly out of place in the sleek corporate environment, and he wore clean jeans and a button-down shirt, his version of formal attire, and carried a small paper bag. Hi, he said simply. Hi yourself. Olivia found herself suddenly self-conscious. This is unexpected. Alice is at a friend's house for dinner. I thought, he shrugged. I wanted to congratulate you in person. Thank you. Olivia gestured to the sitting area in her office. Would you like to sit? Can I get you anything? I'm good. Daniel settled into one of the leather chairs looking around at her office. So this is where the magic happens. Olivia laughed. Some would call it magic. Others might say organized chaos. It suits you. His eyes took in the clean lines, the sophisticated technology, the spectacular view of downtown Denver. Impressive without being showy. I spend more time here than at home, Olivia admitted, sitting across from him. At least I used to. Used to, Bo? I've been leaving the office at reasonable hours lately, taking weekends off. My team is in shock. Daniel smiled. Imagine that. I brought you something. He handed her the paper bag. Not exactly a merger gift, but Olivia opened it to find a small wooden box beautifully crafted with intricate grain patterns. Did you make this? Daniel nodded. Salvaged wood from a historic building we renovated downtown. It's over 100 years old. Olivia ran her fingers over the smooth surface, touched by the personal nature of the gift. It's beautiful. Thank you. Open it, Daniel suggested. Inside was a small silver key on a simple chain. It's to my apartment, he said quietly, so you don't have to knock anymore. The significance of the gesture wasn't lost on Olivia. This wasn't just convenience, it was invitation. Access, trust. Daniel, you don't have to say anything. His voice was gentle. I just wanted you to know that you are welcome. Anytime. Olivia closed her fingers around the key, emotion threatening to overwhelm her carefully maintained composure. This means a lot to me. I know. Daniel hesitated, then continued. Alice asked me something yesterday. She wanted to know if you were part of our family now. Olivia's breath caught. What did you tell her? I told her that family comes in many forms. That sometimes people choose each other, build something together that doesn't have a simple label. He met her eyes directly. I told her that you're important to us, and we hope we're important to you too. You are, Olivia said without hesitation. More than I can express. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on knees. I've been thinking a lot about Portland. Olivia tensed. And I turned it down yesterday. Relief flooded through her. You're staying in Denver. We're staying, Daniel confirmed. Alice loves her school, her friends, and there are other considerations. The phrase hung between them, weighted with meaning. Olivia found herself at a rare loss for words. Would you have dinner with me? Daniel asked suddenly. Just us, no Alice, no work, no interruptions. Like a date, Olivia couldn't help smiling. Exactly like a date. Daniel's expression grew serious. I think we've been circling this long enough, don't you? Olivia's phone buzzed, Victor calling, probably with news about the merger. 6 months ago, she would have answered without hesitation. Tonight, she silenced it without a second thought. Yes, she said simply. I'd like that very much. The following evening, Olivia found herself doing something she hadn't done in years, fretting over what to wear for a date. Her closet full of designer clothes suddenly seemed inadequate for the occasion. Too corporate, too formal, too much like armor. In the end, she chose a simple sundress in soft blue paired with flat sandals instead of her usual heels. Her hair, normally pulled back in a severe style, fell loose around her shoulders. The woman in the mirror looked younger, more approachable. More like the Olivia she was discovering beneath years of carefully constructed defenses. Daniel had suggested a small Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood far from the upscale establishments where Olivia might be recognized. When she arrived, he was already waiting, looking handsome in dark jeans and a blue button-down that brought out his eyes. He stood as she approached, appreciation evident in his gaze. "You look beautiful." "So do you." Olivia smiled, surprising herself with the girlish flutter in her stomach. The restaurant was intimate with candlelit tables and excellent food. Conversation flowed easily between them, freed from the constraints of Rustler's bar and the watchful eyes of Alice. They talked about everything and nothing: childhood memories, favorite books, travel dreams. Ordinary topics that felt extraordinary simply because they were sharing them. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said, as they lingered over coffee. "Something I've been wondering for a while." "Of course. That first night at Rustler's, why did you come back? You could have gone anywhere, any upscale place in the city. Why a working-class bar in that neighborhood?" Olivia considered the question carefully. "Honesty," she finally said. "There's an authenticity in places like Rustler's that you don't find in the world I usually inhabit. No one's putting on airs or trying to impress anyone. It's just people being themselves without pretense. And that appealed to you. It was like oxygen after years of breathing filtered air." Olivia traced the rim of her coffee cup. "My whole life is performance, the tough CEO, the visionary leader, the woman who can compete in a man's world. At Rustler's, I could just be." Daniel nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I felt the same way. After the military, after losing Tom, after becoming responsible for Alice, I needed somewhere that didn't demand anything from me. Somewhere I could remember who I was beneath all the roles and responsibilities. And then I came along and complicated everything," Olivia said with a rueful smile. "In the best possible way." Daniel reached across the table, taking her hand. His touch was warm, calloused from physical labor, reassuringly solid. "I wouldn't change it." The simple contact sent electricity up Olivia's arm. How long had it been since someone had touched her with such uncomplicated affection? Years, probably. Maybe never. "Neither would I," she said softly. Later, walking back to their cars, Daniel kept hold of her hand. The night air was cool, but pleasant stars visible despite the city lights. They moved unhurriedly, neither eager for the evening to end. "Alice is staying at my neighbor's tonight," Daniel said casually. "Sleepover with their daughter." "Oh," Olivia tried to keep her tone neutral, though her pulse quickened. "Would you like to come back to my place for coffee, or—" He left the alternative unspoken. Olivia stopped walking, turning to face him directly. "Daniel, I need you to know something. I'm not looking for casual. Not with you, not with Alice involved." "Neither am I." His gaze was steady, unflinching. "I haven't been casual about you since the night you tore my shirt open in Rustler's." The memory brought heat to her cheeks. "That was quite an introduction." It was honest. Daniel's hands came to rest lightly on her waist. "Like this is." When he kissed her, Olivia felt something unlock inside her chest, a door long sealed suddenly opened to possibility. His lips were gentle but confident, asking rather than demanding. She responded with equal care, aware of the significance of this moment. This wasn't just a kiss, it was a declaration. When they finally separated, Olivia kept her eyes closed for a moment, savoring the sensation. "That was worth waiting for," she murmured. Daniel's smile was evident in his voice. "Definitely." At his apartment, they moved with the hesitant tenderness of people discovering each other for the first time. Coffee forgotten, they explored this new dimension of their relationship with words and touches, learning boundaries and preferences, finding unexpected joy in simple connection. Later, lying in Daniel's arms, Olivia felt a peace she'd rarely experienced. The constant mental chatter of her professional mind, analyzing, strategizing, calculating, had fallen silent, replaced by simple contentment. "What are you thinking?" Daniel asked. his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. That I didn't know it could be like this, Olivia admitted. So, uncomplicated. Daniel's chest rumbled with quiet laughter. I wouldn't call us uncomplicated. No, but this, she gestured to encompass them, the bed, the moment. This feels right, natural. It does. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, though we still have plenty to figure out. Like what? Like how the billionaire CEO and the construction worker make this work long term. Like what we tell Alice. Like whether you're ready to be part of a package deal. The questions were legitimate, practical concerns that would need addressing. But tonight, wrapped in warmth and newfound intimacy, they felt manageable rather than insurmountable. We'll figure it out, Olivia said with uncharacteristic optimism. Together. The morning brought reality back in the form of buzzing phones and responsibilities. Olivia had an early executive meeting to prepare for. Daniel needed to pick up Alice and get her ready for school. Their goodbye was affectionate but hurried, both already sliding back into their respective worlds. As Olivia drove to work, she wondered how they would navigate this new territory. The practical challenges were significant. Their schedules rarely aligned. Their social circles never overlapped. Their daily realities remained vastly different. What worked in the bubble of a romantic evening might prove more difficult in the harsh light of day-to-day life. Her concerns deepened when she arrived at the office to find Victor waiting with a grim expression. We have a problem, he said without preamble. What kind of problem? He handed her a tablet displaying the morning's leading business news site. The headline made her blood run cold. Reed Innovation CEO's secret romance with construction worker raises corporate governance concerns. Below it was a photo of Daniel kissing her outside the restaurant, clearly taken the previous night. Reed Innovation CEO's secret romance with construction worker raises corporate governance concerns. Olivia stared at the headline, a peculiar calm settling over her. She'd spent years fearing this kind of exposure, the invasion of her carefully guarded privacy. Now that it had happened, she found herself oddly unshaken. This is your definition of a problem, she asked Victor, handing back the tablet. His eyebrows shot up. The board is in an uproar. 3 major shareholders have called demanding explanations. The timing couldn't be worse. We're 1 day into the merger announcement. Is there something inaccurate in the article? That's not the point. It's exactly the point. Olivia moved to her desk, setting down her briefcase with deliberate calm. I'm seeing someone. He happens to work in construction. The merger is proceeding exactly as planned. Where's the crisis? Victor paced the office, agitation evident in every movement. The optics, Olivia. The board was already nervous about your distractions. This confirms their worst fears. That I have a personal life. That you're making decisions based on emotion rather than strategy. Victor stopped pacing, fixing her with a pointed stare. The timing of your sudden interest in a merger, which you've opposed for years, coinciding with this relationship, raises legitimate questions. Olivia felt her temper flare but kept her voice measured. My professional decisions are based on what's best for the company. Always have been, always will be. Then prove it. Victor placed both hands on her desk, leaning forward. Issue a statement distancing yourself from the relationship. Say it's been exaggerated by the press. Buy yourself some breathing room until the merger dust settles. No, the word emerged with quiet finality. Olivia, be reasonable. I've spent 15 years being reasonable, Victor, sacrificing my personal life for this company, putting shareholders above my own happiness. Not anymore. Olivia stood, meeting his gaze directly. I won't apologize for having a relationship, and I certainly won't pretend it doesn't exist to make the board more comfortable. Victor straightened, studying her with new awareness. You really care about him. I do. Enough to risk everything you've built. The question hung between them, weighted with implications. Olivia considered it carefully. If the board wants to challenge my leadership based on who I'm dating, rather than my track record of success, then perhaps this isn't the company I thought it was. Victor's expression shifted from frustration to something like respect. You've changed. I've evolved, Olivia corrected. Now, if there's nothing else, I have an executive meeting to prepare for. After Victor left, Olivia sat at her desk contemplating her next move. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Just saw the news. Are you okay? His concern touched her. Most men would be worrying about themselves, about the unwanted exposure. Daniel was thinking of her. "I'm fine," she texted back. "How about you?" And Alice. "Alice doesn't know yet. She's at school. I'm more worried about how this affects you." Olivia smiled at his response. Having dinner with the most handsome man in Denver is hardly something to be ashamed of. Flatterer, seriously though, what can I do? Nothing to do. This was inevitable. We'll weather it together. Together, I like the sound of that. The executive meeting was tense but productive. Olivia addressed the elephant in the room, directly acknowledging the press coverage of her personal life and reaffirming her commitment to the company's success. Most of her team had worked with her long enough to trust her judgment, even if they were surprised by this new development. By afternoon, the story had spread across all major business publications. Olivia's PR team had prepared a simple statement: Ms. Reed's personal life is private. Her commitment to Reed Kingsley Technologies remains unwavering. She was reviewing acquisition documents when her assistant knocked hesitantly. "Miss Reed, there's a call from Hillcrest Elementary School regarding an Alice Walker. They say it's urgent." Olivia's heart clenched. "Put it through immediately." The school counselor's voice was professionally calm. "Ms. Reed, I'm calling because Alice Walker has had an incident at school today. Mr. Walker listed you as an emergency contact." "What kind of incident is she hurt?" "Not physically, no. There was an altercation with some classmates. They were apparently discussing the news stories about her father and yourself." Olivia closed her eyes briefly, pain lancing through her chest. "Is Daniel Mr. Walker on his way?" "We've been unable to reach him. He's on a construction site with poor reception. Alice is quite upset and asking for you. Tell her I'm on my way. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Olivia canceled her remaining meetings and drove to the elementary school anxiety building with each mile. She'd been so focused on the corporate implications of the publicity that she hadn't fully considered its impact on Alice. The school counselor, a kindly woman in her 50s, met Olivia at the front office. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Ms. Reed." "Where is she?" "In my office. She's calmed down somewhat, but she's still quite distressed." Olivia followed the counselor down a cheerful hallway decorated with student artwork. Through the office window, she could see Alice sitting in an oversized chair, legs pulled up to her chest, expression miserable. The child looked up when the door opened. Her face crumpled at the sight of Olivia, fresh tears welling. "They said mean things about Dad," she managed between sobs. "And about you." Olivia crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling before Alice's chair. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." Alice launched herself forward, arms wrapping tightly around Olivia's neck. The counselor discreetly stepped out, closing the door to give them privacy. "Tommy Weber said his mom saw on the internet that you're only pretending to like Dad and me for publicity." Alice hiccuped against Olivia's shoulder. "He said it's all fake and you're just using us." Anger flashed through Olivia, not at the child repeating these things, but at the adults carelessly discussing such matters where children could hear. "Tommy Weber is wrong," she said firmly, stroking Alice's hair. "And so is his mother." "But why would they say that?" Olivia pulled back slightly, looking into Alice's tear-streaked face. "Sometimes adults say unkind things when they don't understand something. And sometimes when people are in the news, other people make up stories about them." "Are we in the news?" "A little bit. Some people are interested because I run a big company and they're surprised that I'm friends with you and your dad." Alice's brow furrowed. "Why is that surprising?" The innocent question highlighted the absurdity of the situation. "I honestly don't know," Olivia admitted. "It shouldn't be. Tommy said Dad only likes you because you're rich." Olivia felt a stab of pain at the words, knowing how deeply they would hurt Daniel. "Your dad is one of the most honest, hardworking people I've ever met. Do you think he's the kind of person who would pretend to like someone for money?" Alice shook her head emphatically. "No, Dad says character matters more than anything." "He's right, and your dad has tremendous character." Olivia gently wiped tears from Alice's cheeks. "What happened after Tommy said those things?" Alice looked down, suddenly interested in her shoelaces. "I pushed him and called him a liar." "I see. Ms. Peterson says violence is never the answer, but he was being mean about Dad." Fresh tears welled. "Am I in big trouble?" "Defending your father's honor is understandable, though pushing isn't the best way to do it." Olivia said carefully. We'll talk with your dad about better ways to handle situations like this. Is Dad coming? He's working at a site with bad phone reception, but he'll come as soon as he gets the message. The door opened and the counselor returned. Ms. Reed, Mr. Walker has just arrived. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his expression transitioning from concern to relief at seeing Alice safe with Olivia. He was still in work clothes dust on his jeans, suggesting he'd come directly from the construction site. Dad? Alice launched herself at him. He caught her easily, lifting her into a tight hug. Hey, kiddo, I came as soon as I got the message. Over Alice's head, his eyes met Olivia's, gratitude evident in their depths. She nodded slightly, understanding passing between them without words. The counselor explained the situation with professional detachment, though Olivia noted the woman's curious glances between her and Daniel. News traveled fast, even to elementary schools. After arrangements were made for Alice's early dismissal and a meeting scheduled with Tommy Weber's parents, they walked to the parking lot together. Alice, emotional exhaustion setting in, leaned heavily against Daniel's side. Thank you for coming, he said quietly to Olivia. It means a lot that you dropped everything. Of course I came. She needed me. The simplicity of the statement surprised even Olivia. 6 months ago, nothing would have pulled her from the office during a merger. Today, the choice hadn't even felt like a choice. Dad, Alice's small voice interrupted. Can Olivia come home with us? I don't want to be alone. Daniel glanced at Olivia. I'm sure Olivia has to get back to work. I'd love to come if you're sure it's not an imposition, Olivia interjected. The relief on Alice's face was worth any business meeting she might miss. At Daniel's apartment, Alice finally succumbed to emotional exhaustion, falling asleep on the couch with her head in Olivia's lap. Daniel covered her with a light blanket, then gestured for Olivia to join him in the kitchen. I'm sorry about all this, he said quietly, handing her a cup of tea. The publicity, the school situation, it's exactly what I was afraid would happen. None of this is your fault, Olivia replied. If anything, it's mine. I'm the public figure. Daniel leaned against the counter, fatigue evident in the set of his shoulders. I never wanted Alice exposed to this kind of scrutiny. She's been through enough already. I know. Olivia set down her tea, moving closer to him. What can I do? How can I make this easier for both of you? His expression softened. You're already doing it, coming when she needed you, being here now. That's the easy part. Olivia glanced toward the living room where Alice slept peacefully. The question is, what happens next? The publicity isn't going away, Daniel. If anything, it will intensify as the merger progresses. What are you saying? I'm saying we need to be clear about what we are to each other, for Alice's sake and for our own. Daniel studied her face. And what are we to each other, Olivia? It was the question she'd been avoiding for months, even as their lives had become increasingly intertwined. Defining things made them real, and real things could be lost. I think, Olivia took a steadying breath, I think I'm falling in love with you, and with Alice, and it terrifies me. The admission hung between them, vulnerable and raw. Daniel's expression remained unreadable for a long moment. Then slowly he reached for her, drawing her into his arms. Why does it terrify you? He asked softly. Because I've never needed anyone before. Because I don't know how to do this, how to be part of a family, how to balance work and love, how to be worthy of both of you. Olivia pressed her forehead against his chest. Because I'm afraid I'll fail at the things that matter most. Daniel's hand came up to cradle the back of her head, a gesture so tender it made her throat tight with emotion. Do you think I'm not scared too? Raising someone else's child, letting someone new into our carefully balanced lives, exposing Alice to public scrutiny? None of this was in my plan. So why risk it? He tilted her face up to meet his gaze. Because some things are worth the risk. You're worth the risk, Olivia. The kiss that followed felt like a promise, gentle but certain, a commitment beyond words. When they separated, Olivia felt steadier somehow, as if the ground beneath her feet had finally solidified. So where do we go from here? She asked. Forward, Daniel replied simply, together. And they spent the evening in domestic quietude, helping Alice with homework, making dinner, watching a movie. To an outside observer, they might have looked like any ordinary family, not a billionaire CEO, a former Marine turned construction worker, and his adoptive daughter navigating an extraordinary situation. After Alice went to bed, they sat on the small balcony, sharing a glass of wine and contemplating the city lights spread beneath them. I've been thinking, Olivia said after a comfortable silence, about solutions. Daniel raised an eyebrow. The CEO never stops problem solving, does she? Not when it matters. Olivia turned to face him fully. What if we controlled the narrative? Instead of letting the press speculate and distort our relationship, what if we defined it ourselves? What did you have in mind? An exclusive interview, carefully managed with a journalist we trust. We tell our story on our terms, how we met, what we mean to each other, how we're building something meaningful despite our different backgrounds. Daniel considered this. You think that would help? I think it would reduce the sensationalism, give context to what might otherwise seem like an unlikely pairing. Olivia took his hand. More importantly, it would show Alice that we're not hiding, not ashamed, that we're proud of what we're building together. It's worth considering, Daniel agreed. But there's something else we need to address first. What's that? This merger of yours. The timing coming right as we became closer. I need to know that I didn't influence a business decision that affects thousands of people. The question was fair, if uncomfortable. Olivia took a moment to formulate her response. You influenced me, she said carefully. You helped me recognize that success without balance isn't really success at all. That sharing power can create something stronger than solitary control. She squeezed his hand. But the merger itself makes strategic sense. It's a sound business decision that I would have made eventually, regardless of my personal evolution. Daniel searched her face, then nodded, apparently satisfied with her answer. That's good enough for me. They settled into comfortable silence again, the night air cool against their skin. After a while, Daniel spoke again, his voice thoughtful. Alice asked me something interesting yesterday. She wanted to know if we could live somewhere with a bigger garden. Olivia's heart skipped a beat at the implication. Did she now? Said her worm population is outgrowing our community plot. Worms do need space to thrive, Olivia replied, playing along. What did you tell her? That living arrangements are complicated adult decisions that take time to figure out. Very responsible answer. I thought so. Daniel's thumb traced circles on her palm. But it got me thinking about the future, about what that might look like for us. Olivia had been contemplating the same question. My house is too big, too formal. It never felt like a home, even to me. And our apartment is too small, especially if you'd ever want to be there more often. The tentative way he phrased it touched her heart. Even now, he was careful not to presume, not to push. What if we found something new, Olivia suggested. Not my place, not yours. Something that could be ours together. With a garden for Alice's worms. Daniel's expression lightened. You'd consider that starting fresh, somewhere new. I would, in fact. Olivia hesitated, then continued. I've already been looking. Just preliminary research, nothing serious yet. But there's a property in Cherry Creek, a craftsman-style house with a large yard, big kitchen space for a workshop for you. It's in a great school district for Alice. And you've really thought about this? I have. Olivia felt suddenly vulnerable. Is that presumptuous? It's too soon, isn't it? Daniel's kiss was her answer, tender, affirming, full of promise. It's not too soon. Not for me. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Olivia woke to her phone buzzing incessantly, dozens of missed calls and messages from Victor, her PR team board members. The headline that greeted her was even more sensational than yesterday's Reed-Kingsley merger in jeopardy as Olivia Reed's romance raises conflict of interest concerns. Daniel, reading over her shoulder, tensed. That can't be good. It's nonsense, Olivia replied, though concern flickered through her. There's no conflict of interest in my personal life. Unless they're suggesting I somehow influenced the merger decision. His expression darkened, which is exactly what I asked you about last night. And I told you the truth. The merger makes strategic sense regardless of my personal life. Olivia sat up, already typing a response to Victor. I need to go in and deal with this directly. Of course. Daniel's understanding came without hesitation. Do what you need to do. She paused in her typing, looking up at him. This is going to get worse before it gets better. You and Alice need to be prepared for that. We will be. His confidence steadied her. Go be the CEO. We'll be here when you're done. Olivia dressed quickly, borrowed one of Daniel's shirts to replace her wrinkled blouse from yesterday, and kissed Alice goodbye while she was still sleepy-eyed at the breakfast table. "Will you come back tonight?" the child asked, rubbing her eyes. "If it's okay with your dad, I'd like that very much." Alice nodded solemnly. "I'll feed your sunflower while you're gone." The simple domestic moment fortified Olivia for the battle ahead. By the time she reached Reed Technologies headquarters, she had a strategy firmly in mind. Victor was waiting in her office, expression grim. "The board wants an emergency meeting this afternoon." "Fine, schedule it." Olivia moved past him, settling behind her desk with deliberate calm. "Is there anything specific they're concerned about, or just the general hysteria?" "They're questioning your judgment, Olivia. The timing of the merger coming just as your relationship was developing raises legitimate concerns about your decision-making process." "My decision-making process is the same as it's always been: rigorous, data-driven, and focused on long-term growth." Olivia met his gaze directly. "The merger is the right move for Reed Technologies regardless of my personal life." Victor studied her, his expression unreadable. "You really believe that?" "I know that, and so do you, or you wouldn't have agreed to it." A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Victor sighed. "What do you need from me?" The question surprised her. "What do you mean?" "At the board meeting, what do you need me to say?" Understanding dawned. Victor was offering support, not challenge. "The truth, that the merger makes strategic sense, that my personal life hasn't affected my professional judgment." He nodded, decision made. "I'll back you, but this won't be easy, Olivia. The old guard on the board is looking for any excuse to assert control." "Let them try." The board meeting was everything Victor had predicted: tense, accusatory, filled with thinly veiled concerns about Olivia's emotional stability and divided focus. She weathered it with ice in her veins, presenting data projections, strategic analyses that supported the merger decision beyond question. Victor, true to his word, backed her position forcefully. "I've known Olivia Reed for 15 years, he told the board. "Her personal life may have evolved, but her business acumen remains unparalleled. This merger was my idea initially, and I stand by it completely." After 3 grueling hours, the board voted to proceed with the merger as planned, though with increased oversight of the integration process. It was a qualified victory, but a victory nonetheless. As the boardroom emptied, Victor lingered behind. "Well done," he said quietly, "but this isn't over." "I know." Olivia gathered her materials, exhaustion beginning to set in. "Thank you for your support." "Don't thank me yet." Victor's expression was somber. "They're going to keep coming at you, Olivia. As long as they see your relationship as a vulnerability, they'll use it against you." "What would you suggest?" "End it, at least until the merger is complete and the company stabilizes." The suggestion, though expected, still stung. "Not an option." Victor studied her with new awareness. "It's that serious." "It is." "Then you'll need to neutralize it as a perceived weakness." He hesitated, then continued. "Make it official, public, something they can't use against you because you've owned it completely." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" "I'm a strategist, Olivia, always have been." Victor shrugged. "If you can't eliminate a vulnerability, transform it into a strength." The idea followed Olivia home that evening, taking shape in her mind as she drove to Daniel's apartment. By the time she arrived, decision had crystallized into certainty. Alice greeted her with enthusiastic updates about the sunflower seedling, which had apparently grown measurably during the day. Daniel's welcome was warmer, though concern shadowed his eyes. "How bad was it?" he asked after Alice had gone to finish her homework. "About as expected. The board had concerns, but we addressed them. The merger is proceeding." "That's good, right?" "It is." Olivia took his hands in hers. "But Victor's right about one thing. They'll keep using our relationship against me as long as it seems like a vulnerability." Daniel's expression tightened. "So what now? We hide it, pretend this isn't happening?" "Just the opposite." Olivia met his gaze steadily. "I think we should get married." The words hung between them, shocking in their directness. Daniel stared at her, momentarily speechless. "That's not what I expected you to say." "Is it a terrible idea?" Uncertainty crept into Olivia's voice. "It would address the corporate concerns, give Alice stability, and—" She paused, gathering courage. "And it would formalize what I already feel. That you and Alice are my family now." Daniel's expression softened. Olivia Reed, was that a proposal? I suppose it was. She laughed nervously. Not very romantic, is it? Actually, Daniel said, pulling her closer, it's exactly who you are. Practical, strategic, and completely surprising. Is that a yes? His kiss was answer enough, tender and certain, a promise beyond words. When they separated, his eyes held a mixture of wonder and resolve. Yes, he said simply, but not for the board, not for the press, for us. In the warm light of Daniel's modest kitchen, with homework spread across the table, and the smell of that night's dinner still lingering, Olivia Reed felt something she'd never expected to find: the certainty of coming home. The next morning, they told Alice over breakfast. Olivia had worried the child might resist, might see her as an intruder in their carefully balanced lives. Instead, Alice launched herself into Olivia's arms with unbridled excitement. Does this mean you'll live with us and I can have a bigger garden and maybe a dog? The questions tumbled out in rapid succession. Daniel laughed. Slow down, kiddo, one step at a time. But yes, to living together, Olivia confirmed, meeting Daniel's eyes over Alice's head. We'll find a new place, with a garden. And the dog is negotiable, Daniel added, making Alice squeal with delight. They decided on a small private ceremony in 2 months' time, enough notice to organize properly, but soon enough to quiet the corporate rumors. In the meantime, Olivia worked with her PR team on an exclusive interview with a respected journalist known for her fair treatment of professional women. The article, published in a major business magazine, told their story with surprising warmth: how they'd met at Rustler's, drawn together by shared solitude, how their friendship had developed over months of quiet companionship, how Olivia had found in Daniel and Alice the balance her success had been missing. The photographs showed them as they truly were: a family finding its way together despite their different backgrounds. CEO finds love where least expected, read the headline. The subheading was even better: how Olivia Reed learned that success includes more than the bottom line. The public response was overwhelmingly positive. Other publications followed with their own stories, most focusing on the unlikely romance rather than perceived corporate conflicts. Even the board seemed mollified, especially when quarterly results showed the merger integration proceeding ahead of schedule. 2 weeks before the wedding, Olivia took Alice shopping for a dress to wear to the ceremony. As they browsed racks of formal wear, the child grew unusually quiet. What's on your mind, sweetheart? Olivia asked, kneeling to Alice's level. When you marry Dad, what should I call you? Alice's expression was serious, contemplative. You won't be my mom, but you won't just be Dad's friend anymore either. The question caught Olivia by surprise. What would you like to call me? Alice considered this with characteristic thoughtfulness. I already have a mom, even though she's not here. And I had my real dad, even though he died. That's right. So maybe, Alice met Olivia's eyes directly, maybe you could be my Olivia. Not just any Olivia, but my special one. Emotion swelled in Olivia's chest, threatening to overflow. I would be honored to be your Olivia, she managed, voice thick with feeling, the most special title I could ever have. The day of the wedding dawned clear and bright. They'd chosen the botanical gardens for the ceremony, Alice's request, so her worm friends would feel at home. Only a small group attended: a few of Daniel's military buddies, Olivia's closest colleagues, Alice's favorite teacher. Victor came too, surprising Olivia with a genuine embrace and well wishes. Daniel waited beneath a flowering arbor, handsome in a simple charcoal suit. As Olivia walked toward him wearing an elegant cream dress rather than traditional white, she felt a peace she'd never expected to find. Alice stood beside her father, proudly holding a small basket of flower petals she'd been scattering with more enthusiasm than precision. The vows they exchanged were simple but heartfelt. Daniel promised patience, partnership, and unwavering support. Olivia promised presence, commitment, and the courage to prioritize what truly mattered. Then, in a moment that hadn't been planned, Olivia knelt before Alice. And to you, Alice Walker, I make these promises as well: to listen when you speak, to celebrate your victories and comfort your sorrows, to help your garden grow and your mind flourish, to be your Olivia always. There wasn't a dry eye in the gathering, and Alice threw her arms around Olivia's neck. The reception was held in the garden's atrium, casual, joyful, filled with laughter. As sunset painted the sky in brilliant orange and gold, Olivia found herself standing slightly apart, watching Daniel twirl Alice in an impromptu dance to a silly song. Victor appeared beside her, offering a glass of champagne. Congratulations. Thank you. Olivia accepted the glass, clinking it against his. For everything. I've never seen you look so happy, he observed. It suits you. I am happy. Happier than I thought possible. And the company, Olivia smiled, is doing extraordinarily well, as you know. Turns out balance makes me a better CEO, not a distracted one. Who would have thought? Victor's tone was teasing, but his eyes were sincere. To new beginnings. To new beginnings. Olivia echoed her gaze, returning to Daniel and Alice. Later that night, after Alice had fallen asleep in a hotel suite down the hall from theirs, Daniel pulled Olivia onto the balcony of their room. The Denver skyline glittered beneath them, a tapestry of lights against the darkness. Second thoughts, he asked, only half joking. Not one. Olivia leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of his body. You, only about the bug Alice is convinced we're getting tomorrow. Olivia laughed. We did say it was negotiable. So we did. Daniel turned her to face him, his expression growing serious. Thank you. For what? For tearing my shirt open in a bar, for seeing me when I was trying to be invisible, for loving Alice as she deserves to be loved. His hand came up to cradle her cheek. For being brave enough to break all your own rules. Best rules I ever broke, Olivia murmured, leaning into his touch. As his lips met hers, Olivia Reed, billionaire CEO, new wife, honorary worm guardian, felt the final boundaries between her worlds dissolve completely. The carefully compartmentalized existence she'd constructed had given way to something messier, more challenging, and infinitely more fulfilling. 3 months later, they moved into the Craftsman house in Cherry Creek. Alice's garden took up a generous portion of the backyard, complete with a state-of-the-art compost system that Daniel had designed specially. Olivia converted one wing of the house into a home office, allowing her to spend more evenings with her new family while still running the company effectively. On weekends, they sometimes rode out of the city on Olivia's Harley, Alice secured between them, exploring mountain roads and small towns. Occasionally, they stopped at rustlers sitting at their old stools, sharing knowing smiles, as newcomers wondered about the unlikely trio, the elegant woman, the watchful man, the curious child. The regulars never said anything. They'd witnessed the beginning of the story after all. The night a woman tore open a man's shirt and found not just a Marine Corps tattoo, but the future she never knew she was looking for.